What's up? What's up? What's up? We back with another one of these playback joints. You see my shirt today. If y'all in TV land, we out here doing it. Tasha Woodard, what's up? What's going on?
Hey. Wow, we have what
Bam.
a show we have for y'all today. Let's
Absolutely.
go. Let's go.
So we got to bring everybody on stage. First, I want
Yep.
to salute my man Austin. Shout out to you,
Mm,
JC. Shout out to
all
you,
right, all
Tasha,
right.
Rosa, Fox, Naomi G. We are the playback. You know what I'm saying? And Tasha Kitty, of course. You see it. Well, let me point it right way. Tasha Kitty's over there. So, without further ado, go ahead and do your thing, Tash.
Yeah, so today, well, first of all, thank you for joining us. We are the playback streaming on WPAM Blazing 420. Today we have a phenomenal guest for you guys. He is a journalist, author, publisher, and public speaker as well, hailing from Harlem. You guys, if you I mean, I know most of you probably know and have heard of the infamous Don Diva magazine, also known as the Mind Plug. Everybody, welcome and say hello to Cavario.
Yes. All right.
Peace,
Yeah. Peace. Peace.
peace, peace,
Peace. What
peace.
Mario,
up? Salute.
Thank
Mario,
you.
Hey,
Mario.
Peace. What's up, family? What's up, family? Thanks for
what's
How
How
you
you
having
up?
me.
doing,
doing,
my
my
What's
brother?
up?
All
Greetings
Man,
and
right.
I'm doing wonderfully
salutations to
well,
you.
brother. If I was doing any better than I'm doing right now, man, it would be illegal. You know what I'm saying?
Hey.
I'm alive, I'm healthy, I'm free, and I'm functional. You know what I mean?
Awesome.
And
Absolutely.
statistically, I'm an anomaly. I ain't supposed to be here. I appreciate that every day, every day,
No doubt.
every
No
day.
doubt.
Yeah.
Real for
And
real.
we saluting you today, man. Giving you your flowers while you here, man.
I
And
appreciate that,
I,
man.
we know you're gonna drop some nuggets on us, so we just rubbing our hands right
We
now.
like this.
I
We rubbing our
appreciate it.
hands.
I
Mm,
appreciate it.
oh,
Appreciate it, man. You know, I promise not to disappoint, man. I'm gonna just keep it 1,000.
No
For real,
doubt.
for real.
Well, first of all, thank you for for joining us. We know your time. You're busy, and time is money, honey. So we're gonna get right
Yes,
to the
sir.
thing here. So
Appreciate that.
just tell us about, for those who don't know, about Don Diva magazine. You know how that started and how you got the idea for that magazine.
Okay, so I'm gonna tell you about it, tell you how it got started, and how I got the idea. Okay. Um, it started by accident. It was not my intention to get into a magazine. I knew nothing about magazine. I have no background in journalism. It was just a thing that we had created as a promotional product. And rather than drop a flyer like was common back then, this is back in the late 90s, right? So flyers were like the thing. Everybody named mama was putting out flyers, flyers, flyers. So we didn't want to get lost in that shuffle. So we put out a product that looked, I guess, at the time it didn't occur to us, but at the time it looked like a magazine, a very poorly made magazine if it were a magazine, but like a magazine. It had a cover on it, and inside it had pictures. And so uh, the name of well, it wasn't a magazine. The name of the product, well, the product was a promo for the company that I created with my um, ex. She was my ex at the time when we created this. Um, Don Diva Entertainment. So half a film reel, a circle is a film reel is a circle. So you cut it in half, it's a D. You cut a CD in half, it's a D. So the original logo was a half a film reel and a half a CD, Don Diva Entertainment, because we were going to do film and music, a film and music company. And so I had a guy who was helping me at the time work on what was going to be my autobiography. He was the only graphic designer I knew, so I explained to him what the concept was, and he came up with that, whole half a film reel, half a CD thing. So we take this graphic he gives us, we throw it on the front of this makeshift cover of this thing we call the Reflections. And inside of this makeshift magazine were black and white pictures of different people throughout the latter part of the 80s going into the middle 90s, primarily Harlem, but New York in general. And it was like uh, crews and individuals who were like known and revered or respected or liked or whatever. Puff and the Same Gang. This is when Puff was just doing his party promotion thing, the group called Same Gang, a bunch of the homies from Harlem. And there was pictures of Puff and back in the days there, and a bunch of different people who had by this is 99, they had become pretty infamous for different things, whatever, crime and, different things. So it was very nostalgic. It was a very nostalgic response to it, but it was a promo for this business, for this entertainment company. So I'm in a bodega on 145th Street and 8th Avenue. It's Bank of America now. And a young homie of mine walks in and says, yo, Bob, that's my street name. Yo, Bob, I like that magazine, man. When you gonna drop another one? So I'm completely clueless. I'm like, what magazine? What magazine you talking about? And he says, the Don Diva magazine. That's the first time I'd heard the words Don, Diva, and magazine. When he said it, I swear to you, I heard like a faint bell in the back of my head. It's like, boom. Swear to God. I was like, oh yeah. Oh, next month. Now this is December 99. I said, oh yeah, next month. We'll be out with it next month. Because I got no idea what it takes to put together a magazine, right? So I'm like, oh yeah, next month. We'll put the magazine out, no problem. And so January 2000, we put out our first effort to create a magazine. And it took off. When I say took off with the rabbit ears, I mean, they responded very, very well to it. And then
first magazine that you put out wasn't really supposed to be a magazine, but I'm guessing you just grabbed pictures and did a kind of a write-up. When did you have your
no writing? That's what the thing. It was no writing. It was just pictures. Just pictures.
Wow. So when did you have an actual person? Like, when did you do your actual first interview, and who was that with?
That's a good question. Nobody's ever asked that before. That's a very good question. So the first people that we did interviews with, because for people who may not be familiar, Don Diva was primarily about the streets and street figures, but we incorporated the entertainment, rap and so forth, because during this period, the latter part of the 90s going into the 2000s, this was a point at which maximum saturation had been reached with the rappers assimilating all of this street type attitude, behavior, energy. They had gotten very emboldened and very comfortable with talking like they were street guys, acting like they were street guys, right? So of course that convolutes the reality of the streets. It diminishes the true detriment of making that choice, because you guys are making videos and songs with beats and introducing this imagery that comes straight from the street, fancy cars and jewelry and champagne drinking and pretty girl all over the place, whatever. You're marketing and promoting a lifestyle from its highlights that is definitely detrimental. So my mind was like, this needs to be something that counters that creates a clear line of demarcation between the streets and rap, right? So I featured rappers, but that was only to attract the young Black people who were being influenced by this criminal-minded, gangster-minded type of content that rappers were putting out. But then in getting their attention based upon these artists that they did know, I introduced these actual street figures that they did not know. Like, if you didn't come up in Newark, New Jersey in the latter 70s into the 80s, early mid 80s, then as big as Akbar Prey was, and he was the biggest in that Jersey space, whatever, and other places, but definitely like the god in Jersey. If you didn't come up during that time in that place, you never heard of him, because if you were in DC, then you had Mike Frey, or you had what's his name that just died. I have a thing about people cooperate, so sometimes I block them out. But I'll be like, yeah, I can't remember the guy's name. But people know what I'm talking about. He just died. He came home. He came home and he was home for about maybe 6 weeks and he died. He's in jail for like 30 years,
I
but he
think
was
I
a
know who
major
you're
guy
talking
there.
about. I can't
Yeah.
remember. I think I know. He's from. Was
Ray,
he from?
I'll stop on this. Rayful Edmonds. I'm just saying. I didn't want to say his name. But so there was that kind of person everywhere in every city, right? So uh, people, the young people who were enamored with the trappings of that lifestyle and were being exposed to it through the genre of hip hop, I wanted to give them the opportunity to put that lyrical content and those ideas and that imagery that they were trying to assimilate with. I wanted to put it into a perspective, reality. So it's like, okay, here's a rapper rapping about it. Here's your favorite rapper rapping about it. Now, here's a guy who actually lived this life, and here's his story, and he's telling it, and he actually made these large sums of money, and he actually participated in or ordered these extreme acts of violence, that your favorite rapper likes to romanticize about. And he is now dealing with the actual repercussions because he's not in a booth. This is not a booth reality. This is not a made up reality. This is a real reality, and there really wasn't anything that really discerned that, that really made it very clear. This is a rapper who raps about doing these things. And this is a person, a gangster who actually did these things. And this is what really happens when you do these things. This is what really happens when you slide on your op and, when you go and, scoop your package and distribute large sums of drugs in your, community. This is what actually happens. So that, those first people, to answer your question, the first people I interviewed on both sides. The first rappers, Rough Rider, anybody out of Rough Rider, because that's family, right? So anybody out of Rough Rider. So I guess it was Earl, DMX, the Locks, right? Because the Locks were with them at first, whatever. So they were the first in the rap space. And on the street side, the first ones were Akbar Prey out of Jersey and Aaron Jones, Junior Black Mafia leader, who's been on death row for the last 30 years, out of Philadelphia. Junior Black Mafia.
So we know, like, street code, these guys do not talk. How did you get these guys to trust you and actually sit down for interviews with you and have these conversations? Like, what was that dynamic like?
You ask intuitive questions. You're good.
You.
You're good. Because these are the logical questions that should be asked, right? It's funny. It's funny how people, the larger consumer of the urban culture, whether it's the music, attitude, and style that comes out of it, or the actual culture itself. When I say urban culture, I'm talking about urban underworld, crime world, street shit. The people who consume it, the majority of the people consume it, whether they are from the hood or not, don't actually have a clue about the reality of it or what's genuine, authentic about it, right? So they don't really know that you just can't walk up to some former major, because everybody I interviewed in the magazine had obviously been convicted for what they'd done. Otherwise, they couldn't speak about what they'd done, right? So these are guys who were in jail. And for the most part, they were in jail for indefinite periods of time. And so you couldn't just randomly reach out to them, write them a letter and be like, hey, I want to tell the world about all of the crimes and shit like that you were accused of committing and convicted for and sitting in prison for, whatever, because it's entertaining. That goes against the grain, like we don't talk about what we do. We damn sure don't talk about it on a public platform, whatever. That's how it was. And it would have stayed that way. But with rap doing, like I said, what it was doing in terms of getting more and more comfortable with speaking about the lifestyle, the original rappers talked about different flamboyant things, whatever, but in a very kind of general way. They didn't claim they were anybody. They didn't claim that they even knew anybody. They just talked about, the kind of highlights of urban life or whatever, and the things they might aspire to in being a kid from the hood or whatever.
Yeah.
Then they started rapping a little more specific, saying, I know a guy, no names, who does this, and he's the guy that's that. He got all of this and whatever, right? And then the next line of rappers that came after them, seeing what they were doing, seeing that they were venturing closer and closer to the line, said, well, I don't just know a guy. I'm going to tell you the guy's name. And, Preem was the businessman. Prince was the killer. Start calling people by their names, right? That was 50 with Ghetto Quran. That shit caused a huge problem.
Mm-hmm.
People don't really know how much trouble that caused. That caused a lot of trouble. It really did. It almost caused death. It almost caused his death.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. So then, but what it did though, it broke a wall. It broke a wall. Right. So a bunch of kids who didn't have the degree of profile that he has, thus who could be relatively obscure in speaking about things that they shouldn't be speaking about, they became more comfortable in large number. Right. So you started getting these little nobody rappers who started rapping about the local people that they heard about in their neighborhoods or cities and what they were doing and calling them by names, right? So we go from people not talking about it at all in any specific way to people getting a little more specific, to people getting really specific, not just what's happening, but who's doing it, to the next row of rappers who are saying, I'm doing it. I'm him. I'm the drug dealer. I'm the shooter. You know what I mean? And I watched this happen. And they were just getting closer and closer and closer to it. Right. And so when I started like putting these stories out, I was like, y'all, because y'all have watched how rappers have gotten so comfortable with speaking about things that they got no proximity to, that y'all don't understand. These guys that have been in my publication, these are top tier gangsters, criminals, and so forth. These are not, Bobby on the corner guys. These are major offenders. And you can't just walk up to them. I didn't just walk up to them and go, hey man, you have a very interesting story. You mind if I leverage it to make a couple of dollars? Like, I could not have accessed those individuals if I did not have the regard and respect of those individuals. The way I got the regard and respect of those individuals is because they're my peers. These are my former cohorts, my former associates, my former comrades, even family members. I walk that walk. I am from that thing. So when I started doing it, they were sitting up in federal penitentiaries or state penitentiaries. They go, oh, that's Cavario. Oh yeah, I'm definitely going to do it with Cavario, because Cavario, unlike any general mainstream, either journalist or regular person who has grown up most likely in a home where they were told that, drug dealers are bad, criminals are bad. Anybody who does these kinds of things, commits crimes and goes against the laws of our society are bad people, and they should always be looked at as bad people, almost as though they're not even human. Like we don't love our mothers. Like, we're not motivated by the same thing that gets a man up out of his bed or a woman up out of her bed to go and do what they do every day to provide for theirs. We have the same motivations. We just have more of a fervent drive to do what we do and get as much as we can, and we're willing to risk it all to do that, so a regular mainstream person, at the end of the day, if they do a story on a person from the street, at the end of the day, no matter how much humanity that person shows in the show, in the telling of their story in detail, you realize that their story is not just this overarching megalomaniacal, antisocial, homicidal, greedy, I want to destroy society type of person that you like to think they are. They're actually a person who loves their children and love their mothers and just like everybody else, right? And mainstream anytime mainstream addresses our situations from that world, they, at the end of the day, they always have to demonize us. They can never allow us to be humans at the end of the story. You can't say we sold all these drugs, we made all this money, we engage in all of this indulgence at the expense of our own soul, sanity, and community. And you know, we're actually humans too. You can't do that. It has to be, this is a horrible person, they did horrible things and now they're in jail and good for them, or now they're dead and good for them. I was the one place you could go, have your story be told, and have the understanding of how it is you even came to be this person, how it is you even came to be a person that would commit the acts that are commonly associated with this lifestyle, you know? Because what I thought was important, I mean, I had been through the process myself of evolving myself. I was a hardcore, cold-blooded, card-carrying gangster. I carried 2 Mac 11 machine guns. You know, 2, like, you know that character in Don't Be a Menace to Society about drinking your juice in the hood? And he's like, yo, well, yo, should I wear the Jordans with the 9? Or that was me for real. Like, I really did that. Yeah, I'm gonna rock the ankle holster tonight because I'm rocking these so-and-so boots and this, and I'm gonna rock the ankle holster. I'm gonna put the soft side, you know, the soft holster, put a clock right here, and, you know, stuff like that, whatever. And that I rock this one when I wear this suit, when I wear this jacket, I rock that, you know. That
part
like it was
outfit, huh? It was
right, it's part of the outfit. You know what I mean? But I didn't look at myself like some kind of psychopath. You know what I'm saying? Even though I knew that if I'm walking down some street in Baltimore and, you know, I got 2 automatic Mac 11s, you know, under my jacket on shoulder straps, whatever, and, you know, the police or somebody whom I feel is a threat to me pulls up, I'm not this funny. I thought about this the other day. It's like I had no apprehension about taking my machine guns out and spraying. And I had no intention to hurt other people, not whatever, but my mind was so fixed in the space of being the way that I was that it didn't even occur to me what the, you know, far-reaching ramifications of my actions could potentially be. So I wouldn't have a problem with, you know, pulling you know, and I try to be as, you know, I actually practice with mine. I actually went to the you know, to the shooting range. Every weekend I went to the shooting range. I'd go early in the morning, go shooting, and then go down the mountain, go up to I forgot, upstate New York. I go shooting in the mountains and then go down the hill and go skiing all day. I did that every Sunday. So I was very, very good at what I did, right? Whenever I had to do whatever I did, right? Not you know, allegedly. And so, you know, when people you know, thought that you could just walk up or approach or contact some major criminal and be like, I want to do your story. It's like, no, you had to really be somebody. You had to be somebody. You had to be somebody they knew, somebody they respected, or connected to somebody they knew and respected. Other than that, there was no conversation. No conversation happening. He ain't talking to me about nothing I'm doing. You know, so yeah.
It's so interesting to me because it sounds like it's like a programming, right? But in the way that a lot of our men, the streets and how, and not women too, you know, the streets and how everything was, and it sounds like basically people just have to know you, like you, and trust you. And you get them to work with you, right? You get them to work with you. And the magazine became sort of a voice for the voiceless. That's what it sounds like.
Exactly.
So that's how you, once people started to get their voice out, then you get more people, and that's how it probably kind of blew up, which is phenomenal and amazing.
That's exactly what happened.
I'm impressed.
Thank you. That's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. You're obviously a critically thinking person, because the kind of questions you ask, those are critical questions. Those are the kinds of questions that give a person an opportunity to give information that would otherwise be obscured, you know? And you have to think about questions like that, you know? I get interviewed a lot, and a lot of times people, it's more so, and I noticed this long before the advent of social media and digital mediums and smartphones. Just people who wanted to get into the media space not for the purpose of disseminating information that would be enlightening or encouraging to people, but to aggrandize themselves.
Mhm.
So when they do their interviews, it's not about the interview subject and what the interview subject actually has to offer. When they do their interviews, it's about, look who I'm interviewing. Look at what I'm doing. I'm interviewing so-and-so. So-and-so is just an accoutrement. It's all about me and the fact that I can interview so-and-so and people like so-and-so.
Yeah.
And there's
Well,
way more of that.
yeah, that's what's the point of interviewing somebody if you're not really getting any good information from them, right? That's the whole point of it, is to be interesting, and not for me to be interesting. We want you to be interesting. Like, you're excited about the person you're going to speak to, right?
Right. Right. But most people, they secretly want to be the center. They want to be the center of attention. I mean, this is one of the major things that is very wrong with our society now, because we have a system, social media and whatever. It perpetuates and rewards and encourages narcissism.
Mm, mm.
You know, me, all about me. You know what I mean? And to the point where, especially the less educated people are, the more they are inclined to be caught up in that kind of mindset, right? And what it does is it disenables them, because of this me mentality. It disenables them to be able to actually create anything with other people, because they usually attract their own same kind of people. So if I'm a me person and you're a me person and he's a me person, then there is never going to be a we. We're never going to be able to come together and do anything, because it's all about me. And anytime you start making it about you, I'm going to withdraw or undermine. You know, and this, in my opinion and in my observation, seems to be the most prevalent wave, you know, and mindset. You know, and from my assessment, social media is the main propagator of this mental retardation.
It's yeah, the things I see on a daily basis, I can't even believe. There's so many people with issues, mental illness, narcissism, and they have such a platform now. And so now people are looking through these little small windows and just equating these little small windows of people saying A, B, C, D, E through Z, and don't know what they're talking about with actual real life. It's
That's right.
crazy.
Right. That's right. It is literally, it's the definition of crazy. It is. It's the definition of crazy, right?
Yeah.
John,
What up, John? What's up, John?
What's going on?
Hey, shit. I thought you were a cutout.
No. I'm
He was so still and well behaved.
Well behaved.
I don't want them to see.
He was so well behaved and shit. I just thought it was a cutout. I was like, oh shit, John got a cutout.
I was gonna ask you though. From 1980 to 97, we know that you were in the life that you led before Don Diva. So the question I have for you: how many times during those 17 years did you say, like, "Am I tired? What am I doing out here?" Or carrying around the back? You know, how many times did you consider like getting out of that during those 17 years? Or did you? Or did you just accept it as a way of life and just go on until 97?
Another great question. And I say that I feel it's a great question because it gives me the opportunity to give, I believe, invaluable insight into what it is to be in that life that people don't start out with when they think that's what they want to do. Right. The biggest burden in that life is the paranoia, and it increases as your bounty increases. It starts out with you not necessarily. Well, you come into it, if you come into it with any kind of guidance, like, you know, I had guidance from birth. Right. I tell people, and people have heard me speak for a while, I was a genetically engineered gangster. And the reason I say that is, one, because my mother and father were actual gangsters, for one. Two, I wasn't a product of my external environment. You know, I wasn't a kid whose mom and dad were regular working class, church going, school oriented people. And they just were so caught up in their efforts to try to create a lifestyle for me, or that they weren't paying attention. And I got in with the bad people in our neighborhood. That wasn't that. I come from the bad people in our neighborhood. Right. And so that's why I say I am genetically, my mother and father were this, and engineered. I was made and taught to be this way. It wasn't something that I got into because nobody was watching, right? And because I came into it from those types of origins, I was able to have the benefit of two generations before me to see what people don't see outside, right? So I lived with the bosses and the enforcers. My mother's a boss, my father's an enforcer, right? So I live with the people that when these people are outside, people are like, they're bowing and genuflecting and so forth, you know what I mean? But and I don't think that they thought, those people thought that my people slept like a normal person. They probably thought they hung from the ceiling at night or some shit like that, or they didn't look at them as like they were normal people, So I got a chance to see what it was like to carry that when nobody outside can see you. I got to see what it was like to have to be on all the time, and human beings are not meant to be at 10 all the time, right? You're not meant to be in the what they call a hypervigilant state all the time. Hypervigilant state, you being on your absolute degree of alert and awareness, and constantly assessing and reassessing, what do they want? What are they doing? What might they do? That's not something that human beings were meant to be in a perpetual state of, because what it does is it expedites the use of you. It expedites you physically. It expedites you mentally. It expedites you, like however long you were supposed to be able to last, however long what nature afforded you when you came into the world was supposed to last you. Your body was supposed to last you. Your mind was supposed to last you. You fuck around them streets, you expedite the usage. You get old fast in the streets. Mm-hmm. If you get old at all, you get old fast in the streets, So because I had the benefit of two generations before me that I could watch and I could see, the difference between how people perceive you when you're outside and how you are when you're not outside, I was able to have a more realistic perspective of how to be a person in that lifestyle. If you're like, I'm from Harlem, I'm from 115th Street between 7th and 8th. That's Harlem, right? That's where it all started. 16th Street, 15th Street, 14th Street, 7th Avenue, Manhattan Avenue to Lenox Avenue, 111th Street to 100 and say 35th Street, maybe not even that, because that's more like where the entertainment and the swagging and all that happened. But where the money was made, between like 121st and 111th and Lenox Avenue to Manhattan Avenue, billions of dollars being made on the heroin business. This is in the 70s and into the 80s, right? So in that time, in that space, when you moved around and you were somebody, you had to carry that. You couldn't be regular. You had to seem like you were beyond it all. You had to carry that. That's why they drank so much and smoked so much and sniffed so much, whatever. Because you gotta keep that up, Gotta keep it up. You gotta keep that energy up, to the point where you gotta kind of make yourself crazy in order to continually be what people expect you to be based upon your station out here. It's not sustainable. Because I was inside, I understood that it's not sustainable. on some level, even though I was a child, I understood it's not sustainable because I'm in the house with them, but I go outside with them too. So I get to see who they are when they're outside and they're engaging people, and when they're inside and they're not engaging people. And I learned that, one, don't take yourself so fucking seriously, firstly, because I was raised by historically, some of the baddest people that come out of Harlem. Real hardcore, cold-blooded Jim Crow niggas, and not to be played with. Would kill you just as soon as look at you. The people in my family killed each other for violations. My sister killed my mother's youngest brother, and she violated. She whacked a package. He got on her about it. She got loud. He smacked her for getting loud, and then decided he would go to sleep.
Oh.
He never woke up. She shot him 4 times in the top of the head while he slept. My mother covered it up, said some guys he owed money to came in and did it and ran out. Right? My sister was probably like 16 or some shit like that.
Oh
right?
my gosh.
My mother killed at least 2 of her men, her husband and a boyfriend before him. Right. And they were both stone cold killers. These guys were hitmen and enforcers. So I understood that it didn't matter how tough your ass was. If somebody was quicker, you're dead. But my cohorts, my peers, my age-wise peers, when they came into the game in the middle 80s, they didn't have the benefit of these insights. So everything that was displayed for them, to the degree that they could discern it, make sense of it outside, see, they only encountered these kinds of individuals outside. So what they met were the bravado version of them, the version of them that has to match up with the idea of them at all times. So they grew up believing that's what you have to be. And you have to personify it. So you can't ever turn it off. They didn't understand that when you can't see these people, they turn that shit off. When you can't see them, they turn it off. And the ones that don't are the ones that lose their fucking mind. They're the ones that drink themselves to death. They're the ones that end up, ODing or becoming drug addicts. They were major drug dealers, and now they're drug addicts. Because it's not sustainable. You cannot be hypervigilant and on 10 indefinitely. You can't, right? If you do, it'll break you. And a lot of the guys in my generation, because they came up from regular, mommy's a nurse, daddy's a mechanic or a cab driver, whatever, they had no idea. So what they were doing was their versions of what they thought it was, which was based upon what was being presented to them out on the street, not knowing who these people are when they go home and how they manage beyond that stage. So they grow up trying to be this person, thinking I have to become this version that I've seen. I have to become that. Not much different than how people look at rappers or listen to rappers and don't understand that this is a guy sitting in a booth saying words. So if he's sitting in a booth saying words and it goes on a stage around the country and around the world saying those words, when is he doing all the shit he's talking about?
Right.
When is he doing that? When is he dropping off and picking up and sliding and doing that? When is he doing that?
Yeah.
Between studio sessions, performances, recordings, sleeping. When is he doing all that? So a person who is enamored with an artist that has that kind of lyrical content and that kind of character, because these are characters they create, T.I.'s name is Clifford Harris. You know what I mean? Like T.I. is an invention. Tip is an invention of Clifford Harris. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's basically across the board. Like these artists are not who their characters indicate that they are. It's a character. It's like no more than Arnold Schwarzenegger is the Terminator, or Al Pacino is Scarface.
Yeah.
You know what I
Well,
mean?
you
You
see
ain't gonna.
now they're getting arrested and using their songs to lock them up.
Yes, yes,
Mhm.
yes, yes,
Mhm.
yes. And because people don't understand, like it's like these people, this generation of rappers who are being um, prosecuted for their lyrical content. These guys are in that age group, that 20 something age group, who grew up in this uh, false reality that perceived that you could actually be this person. You can actually personify your lyrics. You can be a public figure, recognizable by people everywhere, and still do the kinds of things that criminals do clandestinely
Mm.
and be all right. So these guys are normal, everyday, regular cats. They go, they make these songs, they get themselves a rap deal, a rap record deal, and then they get the actual money, and then they actually go and take the legitimate money they got and go buy drugs to sell. So they can feel more like the person that they've been perpetuating that they are through their lyrical content.
Not realizing that the guys that were doing that to get out of that life. They weren't trying to be in the
The
life.
fuck? The fuck?
Y'all
It's
doing
the
it
it's
backwards.
see, that is a dirty fucking trick. First of all, they played a dirty trick on us, those of us who are from the street. They played a dirty trick on us to get us to uh, be so disconnected with our community and our community's condition that we would say it's more important that we and our little group, our family, be well at the cost of hundreds of other families, that it's justified that we do what we do. Like we got to be good. We got to be all right, even though it means I need to poison my neighbor. I need to poison all my neighbors in order for me to be all right. That was a dirty fucking trick. It was a dirty trick in that it absorbed, for the most part, the best of us,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
For someone as gifted as gifted and intelligent as my mother was, to be uh, a major drug dealer, as opposed to a senator or a corporate head, or because it takes no greater degree of aptitude to do those things than it does for a person to comprise a criminal organization operation, set up the acquisition of a product at a wholesale price that gives room for them to be able to see a profit after paying a staff that they're able to bring on and then put out into a system, into a street or a block or neighborhood, and have it set up in an organizational manner so that everybody knows what their part is. Your security, you are customer control, you handle retail, whatever. And we did all of this shit. None of us had no education.
Your mom could have ran a Fortune 500 company.
Exactly. Same with me. I dropped out of school in 10th grade, stopped paying attention in the ninth, had no idea what my natural aptitudes were. I remember being 19 years old and thinking, I don't know how to do nothing but sell drugs, because I didn't have enough education or exposure to understand that everything I was doing is what was being done in Fortune 500 companies by people who had paid tens of thousands of dollars to get an education that made them proficient enough to be able to do what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I innately had the ability to do it. I just didn't understand the universal application of what I do because I didn't have an education. Not that I didn't have an educational opportunity. I just didn't have any prioritization for education. You know what I mean? I got kicked out of public school in 6th grade and ended up in private school, which gave me access to one of the highest and most exclusive high schools in New York at the time, which was music and art. So I went to great schools, had great educational opportunities. I just didn't have any value for it.
Right.
And no value for it. So yeah, John, I did think about it. I did. So the first time I thought about getting out the game was I was 18, going on 19. I had been in the game 5 years by then. I had three children of my own, two of which I didn't even know about yet. And I had the one child that I knew I was aware of had 4 siblings whom I was also raising. So I had a tremendous amount of responsibility, and I didn't have any kind of job training, job experience. I never had a job in my life. I didn't have a high school diploma, which during this time, it was like a minimum. It's 1986. You need to have a high school diploma to be employable, right? And of course, you wouldn't be qualified even with a high school diploma at that time. You wouldn't be qualified to have the type of employment that would be sufficient for you to be able to take care of 5 children and a woman, as I was doing with what I had going on. So I was like, I was at home, and I was cooking cocaine, making crack. And, things are going, I'm doing well, and things are going. And so I'm going back and forth from the kitchen to the table, with these, 250 gram, cookies of crack, plates of crack. And, I got my system set up, and, my bottle set up and all that, whatever. And I don't know whether it was the fumes or what, right? Or whether it was my subconscious, the part of me that was uniquely my own prior to me coming into the world and being indoctrinated in what I was indoctrinated in. It was something that was me, that didn't have nothing to do with my circumstances, had nothing to do with who I came from or what they taught me, none of that. It was something in me that was just me, right? And that part of me, I believe, was fighting for its survival. And, at some point in this moment where I'm going back and forth and I'm cooking, I don't wear no mask or nothing, I'm cooking, and I'm, all these fumes and everything. And I'm assuming that this had some part in it. I turned for like the 3rd time, coming from the kitchen, from the stove to the table. And I look at the table, and I got all this money piled up on the floor in these bags, because the money's coming in from the block, and I'm trying to keep up with the demand. They rocking them out as quickly as I can put it together. And I turn around, and the money's here, the drugs are here, the vials are all lined up like an assembly line, whatever. And it's like I'm seeing it for the first time, and I'm like, how the fuck did I get here? Because it occurred to me in that moment, even as a child, when I was like, I'm going to be a gangster, it was more so what I was really saying as a child was, I'm going to be a part of my family. That's what I was saying. I'm going to be a part of my family. Because what the fuck did I know about what it was to be a gangster?
Right.
I knew they were gangsters, but I didn't know what that meant. I knew that they got reverence. I knew that people bowed and acquiesced to them and always wanted to be in their good graces. I watched that. I knew that that's desirable. Definitely want that. Kind of like what kids were doing when I started on Diva, when they were assimilating all these ideas and perceptions about who it would be best for them to be based upon the people they were listening to, not understanding that the people they were listening to didn't know what the fuck they were talking about. They were just talking about something they thought was cool to talk about. But as a consumer of it, you're, a developing young person, you're trying to find identity. You're grasping at whatever you can grasp at that you feel is going to get you closer to some sense of who it is important for you to be. Right? So my version of that, because there was no rap at this point, when I'm in the 1st grade and shit like that, right? I'm just connecting with what I see in terms of, what's valuable. What's valuable is to be a gangster, whatever the fuck that means. But I never had it in my mind to be a drug dealer. I didn't have that in my mind to be a drug dealer. So in this moment, when I'm going back and forth and doing this, it's like I've been sleepwalking up until that moment. And I looked and I said, oh shit, I'm a drug dealer. Like all the glorious ideas and hyperbolic, visions of, what it was to be against, all that shit melted away in that moment and said, nigga, you're a fucking drug dealer. And you're definitely a better person than that. Like, you're definitely in the person. My sister was a heroin addict. when I was born, she had been a heroin addict for 2 years already before I was born. I mean, she was a heroin addict at 12, as were several of my first cousins that grew up with her, my mother's siblings, kids, right? So I knew, what drugs did to people. I lived with it. They'd be counting tens of thousands of dollars in that room, and they'd be nodding in that room. And I'm just a little kid, barely out of Pampers, and this is my reality. So it was never a desire of mine to sell drugs. I just wanted to be a gangster, like the people who I loved and respected. It just so happens that was facilitated by the narcotics game. And because I had no understanding of any of the psychological, sociological impacts or implications, it didn't even occur to me that what I was aspiring to was directly connected to something that I wouldn't consciously want anything to do with. All right. So in that moment, I was like I literally, this is in my book, this is in my autobiography, Raised by Wolves. I literally fell to my knees, just streaming. And I was like, God, help me. Help me get out of this. I got 5 kids to take care of. I got all this responsibility. I've got all these other people who work for me, who their lifestyles and so forth are contingent upon me continuing to be who I am and do what I do. So I'm rock hard place. I can't, it was like, I remember choosing this in my mind. I'm choosing this. At that moment, I realized, oh, this shit done reversed on me. I went from choosing it to it possessing me. This shit possesses me.
I can't.
This shit owns me because I can't be who I am without doing this. It feels different when that happens. It feels different when something you think you're in control of choosing, you suddenly realize you don't have any control.
Yeah.
This shit got you. It's a different thing. So yeah, I definitely went there. That happened at 19. Now this is how I resolved it. I sat down on the couch and I said, okay, all right. You need to go back to school. You need to get your GED. You need to go back to school. And you go back to school, you get your GED, get some kind of training, whatever, and get learn business and open up a business. That's what you got to do. And that was my way of pacifying that unique part of me that had, its own sense of survival and self that had nothing to do with my developmental influence, and that's what I told myself. I'm going to go to school. And then I went and I signed up for school in college, whatever, a college course, a college program that you get your GED and earn college credits at the same time, whatever. And, I brought on a guy who wanted so badly to be in the street. He used to drive. He used to be one of my drivers. I brought him on and say, okay, you'll work while I'm in school. And kid got killed. And when he got killed, I said, well, I gotta take care of my business. Because my ability to be the father, the provider, and so forth that I am is contingent upon this income. I can't be in school and on the block at the same time. And I got to go to the thing that I know, the thing that has facilitated the lifestyle I've lived my entire life from birth. I was born into a millionaire, being a millionaire drug kid. So I always had everything you wanted. That's what I was used to. I didn't know life in any other way. Right. So I couldn't just go, well, I'm just going to go and be, I was never regular. So I couldn't go to be something I never was, so it was, I had to go back. So that was where my first bout with, I want to get fucked out of this shit, whatever. You know what I mean? And it happens a time or two more. And I think the last time it happened was the time that I was like, yeah, I'm done. That was 97. I was like, yeah, I'm done. And it was because I'm tired. Like I'm winning. I got a cool program. I don't have no problems, but people are falling all around me. They're falling around me. The feds is grabbing this one, feds is grabbing that one, feds is grabbing this one, feds that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, I've got everything you ever could want out of this life. I've got none of the stuff that you don't want. So what am I waiting for? The stuff you don't want? I'm gonna hang around to get what I don't want?
Right.
Nah. So that was it. This was like,
I love it.
I'm
I
done.
love it. And I see we're like kind of running out of time and everything. I mean, I could just sit and like pick your brain for hours.
I appreciate that.
It's such a pleasure. Yeah. So I do want everyone to know about your book, because all the stories some of these stories that you're telling us, the audience can find the full story in your book, right? Raised by Wolves.
Yep.
Okay. And then you do also have, this is your autobiography, correct?
That's my autobiography,
okay,
yes.
So tell the audience where they can find it and how they can get it and everything.
All right, you can get it directly from my site. I do not let Amazon sell my book. Jeff Bezos don't need my money. All right, you can go to my site and get my book. www.themindplugacademy.com.
Okay.
Right.
And then where can they see you, hear you, find you?
They can find me on Instagram at Cavario. That's CAVARIO _the_mind MIND_plug. Cavario the Mind Plug. They can find me on Instagram, and Cavario on TikTok, just Cavario. And yeah, yeah, basically there.
All right. We want to respect your time, and we know you have.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I got a meeting.
Yeah. Yeah. But thank you so much. This was such an absolute pleasure.
Yes, it really was.
I can't wait to listen back to it. So thank you so much.
I appreciate y'all.
You got to do it again.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yo, let me know, and I'm definitely I'm with it. Thanks, DA Sean Rebel, Tosh Kitty. Arson, John Cunningham, thank you very much for having me on.
Cavario,
look forward to it.
baby.
All right,
yes,
salute.
Next
all right,
time.
salute, my guys.
Peace.
Thank you, G.
All right, peace.
Peace.
Later.
Wow.
Right. See,
He's dope.
to that Amazon.
I enjoyed it.
That
Amazon. That was a whole nother story of the book.
I wish we had another hour, because I had a bunch more questions I wrote down I wanted to ask them, but we ran out of time.
Round 2.
Actually, that turned out very well, didn't it? It turned out very well, didn't it?
Yeah, he's a great guest. Yeah, he's got a great story, and he's really smart. I love that. He's really smart. Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. Well, another one done.
Another one bites the dust, baby. We did it.
So let's just say goodbye to our audience. Thank y'all for listening / watching. Stream us on WPAM Blazing 420. The Playback, y'all.
Thank y'all for tuning into the Playback. Appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in.
Salute. All right, John. All right.
Peace.
All right, awesome. Peace.